Hi everyone, welcome back. One of you have asked me for the tutorial on hospital management dashboard. So in today's video, we are building a healthcare management dashboard that you can proudly add to your portfolio. So here we will follow a structured process. First, we will learn how to import the data, and then we'll try to understand why data cleaning and data modeling are important in data analysis. And later we'll do some calculations to master DAX functions. Also, we will learn how to add AI features into our dashboard. This is going to add immense value to your work because during an interview, being able to explain how you have used AI features to find the insights is what exactly going to make your portfolio stand out to the recruiters. So, without further delay, let's get started. Right, let's start with our first step, which is data importing. Go to Get Data. Here, click on Excel Workbook. Here, I'm selecting the sample data set and now click on Open. So from here, I'm going to select the sheets which I want to load into Power BI. I need admissions, department, diagnosis, and sheet 4. Okay, let me select that. Click on load. So once we load the data, we'll move on to our next step. As you can see here on your right hand side under data pane, we have successfully loaded the data. Now let me walk you through the data set. Let's go to table view. As you can see here, we have 4 tables: admission, department, diagnosis, and let me click on sheet 4. Let's see which one is that. Okay, let me rename it. This table has patient information, so I'm going to name it as patients. All right. So now here, admission and diagnosis clinical, these are our fact tables, meaning they store numerical data or transactional information. Wherein department and patient, these are our dimension table, meaning they provide the context to the transactional data. Let me show you what I mean. Let me go to admissions table. So here you can see that in admission table, we have columns like admission ID, patient ID, and on which date the patient got admitted to the hospital, and on which date he got discharged, and then which department he was admitted into, and what was the admission type, and then who was the insurance provider. So here we are recording the details. That is the reason this is our fact table. So similarly, if I go to diagnosis clinical, here you can see that we have diagnosis ID, admission ID, and then primary diagnosis, and what is the severity, and who is the physician, and lab status, and total billing. So here we are storing numerical data. That is the reason this is also our fact table. So let's go to patients. Here you can see that this table gives us the information about a patient. If I want to know what is the patient name and what is the date of birth and what is the blood type and zip code, all of this information I should come into patient table and I should look for the details here. So this is our dimension table. Basically, this is providing the context for the transactional data. Let's go to department. So here it has what is the department name and what is the bed capacity. I hope it's clear. Normally, our next step would be data cleaning. However, in my case, data is already clean and well structured, so I'm not going to spend much time here. However, in real world scenarios, you often get a messy data that will contain duplicate records, null values, or inconsistent formatting or inconsistent data. So before you start doing the analysis, make sure you clean the data. For now, I'm skipping data cleaning. If you're interested, I will drop the link in the description because I have already made a separate video on it. You can go and check it out. All right, now let's move on to our next step, which is data modeling. This is one of the important steps because in real world projects, data will be stored in multiple tables. And if you don't have a proper relationship between the tables, and if you do calculations and if you add visuals, it will show incorrect values even when your data set is correct. That's the reason you need to know how to connect the tables. So let's go to model view and try to connect the tables. But before that, let me explain you something because this is really important. So here patient ID. For the first time when you visit a hospital, you will get a unique ID that will be your patient ID and it identify the patient information and it will be permanent, it will never change. Wherein on the other hand, admission ID, every time you get admitted to the hospital, you will get a separate admission ID. And along with that, for every admission ID, you will get a separate diagnosis ID. That diagnosis ID you will find in diagnosis clinical table. Okay, now let's go to model view. Here, as you can see, Power BI has already auto-detected the relationship. So for now, I'm going to delete and recreate. Select, right click, you will get an option called delete. Similarly, delete the other two. All right. Now I'm going to connect department, patients and diagnosis clinical table to admissions. Let's go to manage relationship. Click on new relationship. Here I'm connecting patients table to admissions table through a common column called patient ID. And here, as you can see, cardinality one to many, meaning one patient can have multiple admissions. I told you, right? Patient ID will be permanent. However, admission ID, you will get separate admission ID for every visit. So now click on save. Similarly, we are going to connect diagnosis clinical table to admissions table through a common column called admission ID. Here cardinality it has taken 1 to 1, meaning for every admission ID, you will get a associated diagnosis ID. So that's the reason cardinality is 1 to 1. Now click on save. Similarly, I'm going to connect department to admissions through a common column called department and cardinality one to many, meaning in one department multiple patients would have been admitted. And now click on save. As you can see, under status all three relationships are active. Now we have successfully created the relationship between the tables. Now let's move on to our next step, which is metric calculation. Right, let's go to table view. So let's calculate total admission. Here as you can see, in admission table, every row represents one single visit. So if we take the count of admission IDs, it gives us the total admission. So let's go to admission table. Here click on new measure and I'm naming it as total admissions and call count function. And here which table? Admission table, and from admission table what is the column name? Admission ID. And now close it and let's click on OK. Now this is done. Let's calculate our next metric, which is bed occupancy percentage, meaning out of all the available beds, how many beds are currently occupied. The formula is very simple. In numerator, you need to have the count of active patients, meaning how many patients are currently admitted to the hospital, and in denominator, you need to have a total bed capacity. Now, let's calculate a measure. I'm naming it as occupancy percentage. Okay, let's enter like this. Okay. So now numerator value, I'm going to store it in a variable called active patients. How are we going to calculate active patients? Based on the discharge date. If the discharge date is empty or if the discharge date is for future date, we are going to consider that that patient is still admitted in the hospital. So now let's implement the same logic in DAX. I'm going to call a function called calculate because I need to apply filter condition here. So now here I'm going to call a function called count rows. First I'm going to take the count of all the rows in the admission table. Let's pass admission table here. And now let's call filter condition. Here also we need to pass the admission table. And now first I need to check if the discharge date is empty. So I'm going to call isBlank function. And in value I'm going to pass discharge date. And what is the other condition? If the discharge date is there, it should be for future date. So now again call admission of discharge date. All right, and it should be greater than today. All right. So now for denominator, I am going to calculate the total bed capacity. So again, I am going to name the denominator variable as total bed capacity and call some function. In department table, we have a column called bed capacity. So I'm going to take a sum of that. Department of bed capacity. Now this is done and return. So here I'm using divide function. What is the numerator value? Active patients, call that, and denominator total bed capacity, call that, and then alternate result should be 0 and close it and click on OK. So go to format, in general change it to percentage. Alright, now let's move on to our next metric, which is readmission rate percentage. Here we are trying to calculate how many patients have returned to the hospital within 30 days after being discharged. So this is one of the critical KPI, because higher the percentage, it indicates that patients are not being treated properly. So the percentage has to be within 5 or 10% based on the hospital standard. So now let's go and calculate next admission date. Let's go to table view here. So I'm going to filter out the record for one patient ID. Let me take PAT 300. As you can see here, this patient has visited the hospital twice because he has two admission ID. I have already told you, for every visit you will get a separate admission ID. First he visited on 1st January, and second he got discharged on 2nd January, but again he got admitted on 10th January. So now let's create a calculated column to find out the next admission date. So let's go here, click on new column. Here I'm naming it as next admission date. Unlike measure, in calculated column, calculation happens at row level and you get the result for every single row. So what I'm going to do, since we are performing row level calculation, I'm going to capture the patient ID and discharge date for the currently selected row. So let's do that. Let me write var current patient ID. So from which table? From admissions of patient ID. All right. Similarly, I'm going to store discharge date and I'm going to name it as current discharge date. Same table, discharge date. So now written. So here I'm going to call calculate function because I need to apply certain filter contexts. So here, what I'm trying to calculate, I need to find out the next admission date. In our case, what is the next admission date? 10 January 2026. But there is a possibility that one patient can return to hospital several times. So let's say here, what if we had few more dates? 10 May 2026 or 15 August 2026. I need to get the immediate next admission date right after the discharge. So I'm going to use minimum function, and here I'm calling admission of admission date. So it is going to get me the immediate next admission date. All right, and after that I'm going to call filter condition, and I'm going to tell the filter condition, look at admission table and find me the exact match for this patient ID. So let's do that. Pass admission table and find me the exact match for current patient ID. And if it finds, and if the admission date is greater than discharge date, then return me the value. Let me write that. Admission date is greater than current discharge date. Then give me the value. This is done. Let's close it and click on OK. Okay, we are getting some syntax error here. Let me fix it. All right. All right, done. As you can see, it has given us the next admission date. Let me quickly summarize what we have done. In the first iteration, it is going to pick up the patient ID 300 and discharge date 2nd January 2026, and it is going to store it in the variables we have created. And after that, it will go to filter function. Filter functions scans the entire admission table and tries to find the match for patient ID 300 and discharge date 2nd Jan 2026. So here it has identified the matching value. So once it does, it is going to check whether the currently stored discharge date it is greater than the admission date. So in our case, for patient ID 300, admission date is greater than, which is 10th January 2026. So once it satisfies the condition, it is going to write the next admission date, which is 10th January 2026. And after this, it will move on to calculate function. Calculate function is going to pick up this value. So let's say if it has written multiple admission date, if multiple admission dates are available, it is going to write all the dates. So calculate is going to pick up the immediate next available date. That's the reason we are using minimum function. I hope it's clear. Now that we have discharge date and next admission date, let's try to calculate within how many days each patient has returned to the hospital if he has. So to do that, go to admission and click on new column. Here name it as days between. Use date difference function, and from admission of discharge date, take admission of next admission date, and I want the difference in day, so I'm going to use that. Let's close it. All right. Now that we have the return window, let's see if the patients have returned to the hospital within 30 days or not. If they have returned to the hospital within 30 days, we are going to flag it as 1 or else 0. So let's go to admissions and create a new column. So here I'm going to paste the formula because this is very simple. Let me fix it. All right. So now let me explain this. Here I'm checking if the next admission date is not empty and days between column is less than or equal to 30. I'm going to flag it as 1 or else 0. That's it. Now that we have everything, let's calculate a readmission rate percentage. So in numerator, you're going to take how many patients have returned to the hospital within 30 days, and in denominator, you're going to take a total number of discharges. So let's do that. New measure, readmission rate percentage. And now, so we have already calculated something called new admission flag. So if the patient has returned to the hospital, we are flagging it as 1. So I'm going to simply take the sum of it. Sum of admission of new admission flag. So this is our numerator. So let's use divide function. I'm not using divide function. All right. And in denominator, I need to have total number of discharges. So how are we going to calculate? If the discharge date is not empty, which means that that person has already discharged. So I'm going to take account of that. So let's use calculate function here, and then I'm going to call count function. And here I'm calculating admissions of admission ID. Here, what is the filter condition? Call filter condition and admission table. Here I am calling admission of discharge date. This shouldn't be empty, right? So not is blank. So use this function, not is blank. All right. Now this is done. Great. Let's go to format and click on percentage. Calculate our next metric, which is average length of stay. It tells us on an average how many days a patient stays in the hospital. So let's calculate that. Go to table view, create new measure. All right. So here I'm naming it as average length of stay. Here I'm calling a function called average x because I need to calculate the value for every row and then take the average of it. So let's pass the table name. So here we are telling go to this table name, and for every single row take the difference between admission date and the discharge date. So to take the difference, I am calling date difference column, date difference function, and date first date I am passing it as admission date, admission of admission date, and then admission of discharge date. And I want the result in day metric. So I'm going to call day here, and let's close it off. Now let's click on OK. Now let's calculate total revenue. Let's go to table view. Here, let me go to diagnosis clinical. Let me select this table. As you can see here, in diagnosis clinical, we have a column called total billing. So I just have to take the sum of it. So let's go here, click on new measure and name it as total revenue, sum of diagnosis clinical or total billing. This is done. Save it. All right. All right, we are done with the metric calculation. Let's move on to the next step. So now we are in our final stage, that is dashboard designing. So first I'm going to set up a theme for the dashboard. To do that, let's go to view. Here select the drop down. Here you can see that we have several inbuilt options. However, I'm going to select a JSON file here. Let's go to browse for themes. Let me select the file and click on open. I'm going to give you the link to this file in the description box along with the color codes that I will be using in the dashboard designing. Click on OK. Let's go to Home tab. Here, click on any empty space. Under visualization pane, go to Format. So let's go to Canvas background. Under More colors, delete this one and select the color code, and make sure that if you scroll down here, you have transparency. Make sure that it has been set to 0. All right. So now let's go here. First, let me design the layout. So I'm going to add a rectangular box. So let's go to Insert. Here, go to Shapes and select the rectangular box here. Let me place it here. Let me resize. All right. Great. And I want to give a title to the dashboard. So I'm going to add a text box. Select that. All right. Let me resize this. Okay. Here, expand title section. Here I'm going to name it as Hospital Management Dashboard. And now I'm going to change the font size to 22. Scroll down. And text color, I'm going to keep it white. And horizontal alignment, I'm going to keep it to center. I think this should be done. Let's go here. And expand properties section. Let's go to padding section. Here I'm entering 25. Or else let me place 30. This is done. Let me place it in the corner. All right. And also for this dashboard, I want to filter the dashboard by date. So I'm going to add a date slicer. So go here, select date slicer. And here I'm going to take admission date. Let's drag and drop it under field section. Let's change the design for this. Let's go here, expand slicer header. I'm going to keep it as date, and font color, let's keep it white. Go to border section. Okay. Let's go to values here. First, let me change the values color. Let's go here, change it to white and scroll down. Turn the slider off. All right, this is done. Let me resize this. Okay, and let's go to format your visuals. Go to general. Here in effects, you have this visual border, turn it off. And similarly for the text box also, turn it off. All right. So now let's add KPI cards. So I'm going to add a scorecard here. I'm going to copy the same visual. Let's copy it. I think it hasn't copied. Let me do that. All right. Take one more copy. And I need one more. All right. So now this is, so now in the first visual, I want to show how many patients have been admitted to the hospital. So for that, we have already calculated total admission measure. So I'm going to drop it here. So here, total admission ID, take this and drop it under value section. All right. And in the next visual, I want to show occupancy rate percentage, meaning out of all the available beds, how many beds are currently occupied. So for that, we have already calculated occupancy rate percentage. Let me bring it here. All right. And in the third visual, I want to show an average for how many days patient had to stay in the hospital. So for that, we have already calculated average length of stay. So let's bring it here. All right. And in the fourth visual, I want to show after being discharged within 30 days, how many patients have returned to the hospital. So which is readmission rate percentage. That also we have already calculated. Let's bring it here. And in the fourth visual, I want to show total revenue. So that we have already calculated, and let me bring it here. Total revenue. Let me delete it. All right. Okay. Please select it. I didn't select, that's the reason it is giving me graphs. Let's go here and drop it. All right. If you look at average length of stay, it is just giving me the number. Since I have done the calculation, I know that yes, it is in days. What if someone else is looking at my report? They will not be able to identify. They will get confused. Whether is it in days, is it in month, or is it in week? So to avoid that confusion, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show the values in days. It is pretty simple. I'm going to add days next to the value. So how to do that? I have already calculated average length of stay measure. So to this measure, I'm going to concatenate days. Let's do that. Go to admission, write new measure. So here I'm going to write it as average length of stay, display value. Here call the measure. Measure name is average length of stay. All right. Now write and days. So now let me click on OK. Okay. Now select the visual. Instead of this, I'm going to select average length of stay display. Let me drag it. However, if you see after the decimal point, I have more than one value. So I'm going to set it to 0 because it kind of looks messy. So let me fix that. Again, click on average length of display visual, average length of display measure. So here to set the value to 0, I'm going to use round function. I'm basically rounding off the value. And here I don't want any value after the decimal point. So set it to 0. All right. Now let's click on OK. See how neat it looks. And now let's change the label here. Let's go call out and let me expand a label section. Okay, first let me go to ALS display. Change the text here. I'm going to change it to average length of stay. All right. Now this is done. So now let's design the KPI cards. I'm selecting the first visual. Let's go here. Okay, set to table. I'm going to turn border, grid lines and background everything off. I'm going to call out section. Okay, where is call out section? Let me collapse layout. Okay, so in call out, I'm going to expand value section. Okay, font size I'm keeping 22 and color pure white. Okay, and let's go to label. This also looks fine. I have selected white color here also. So now let me make the same changes to other visual. Let me show you a trick here. So select the first card, go to format painter, click on this and click on the visual where you want to apply the same changes. So let's do the same thing for all other visual. All right. Okay. So if you notice here, I have a small background. Let me turn it off because it is kind of a distraction. Let's go to general to turn the background off, effects and come down here. Here you will find an option called visual border, turn it off. So again, go to format painter. Let's apply it. Okay, here I think it hasn't changed it. Let me change the label here. It is still showing as ALS display. Let's go to visual, call out and let's go to label. Good. Now this is done. So now I want to show average length of stay by department. So I'm going to add a line chart here. Let me select that. This is one of the important chart because by looking at the chart, you can understand that which department is keeping the patients for longer time. So let me add the chart. In x-axis, I'm going to take department, and in y-axis, I'm going to take average length of stay measure. All right. So now let me change the format here. Let's go. Change it to white color. And okay, let's go to y-axis. Here, turn the title off and keep the values in white color itself. And let me go here. Average length of stay by department. Okay. All right. Now, I want to show a readmission rate percentage by department. This is one of the critical indicators as it shows clinical success and operational efficiency. So let's say for any department, a readmission rate is high. So which means that that department might be struggling with something. They might be needing better equipments or they might need more staffing. So it kind of alerts the hospital management system to pay attention to that department and provide the necessary resources. In some hospital, what happens? If the readmission rate is higher, it leads to financial penalties also. So let's add a bar chart. Now, in x-axis, I'm going to take department, and in y-axis, I'm going to take readmission rate. Okay. All right. Let me resize this. All right. So now I'm going to select the first visual, go to Format Painter and click on here. Now I want to know total admissions by department. So I'm going to add a donut chart here. Okay, let me select a donut chart. And here in legend, I want department, and under values, I need total admissions. All right. So now let's go and change the designing. Let's go to legend and here expand text section, change the color here, and title, I'm going to keep it as it is, and go to detail labels and expand values and change the color. All right. So now here, let me change the bar colors here. Let me select, and now go to columns and let me click on color here. Let me select. Oh no, it doesn't look good. Let me change the color. Okay, I think I haven't copied it properly. Let me copy it. Okay, this is done. So now let's add some icons. This is not just to make the dashboard look pretty, because if someone is looking at the dashboard, just by looking at the dashboard, they should be able to identify, yes, I am looking at healthcare related data. So let's do that. So I'm going to add some icons. For that, you need to go to insert. Here, let's select image. So under format page, you have this section called style. Expand that, expand image section. And here you have this browse option. So whatever downloaded images are there on your local PC, you can bring it here. So for now, I'm going to bring this one. These icons you can download online. There is this website called Icons 8. From there, you can download the icons. I will drop the link in the description if you want. So now let me select it and adjust here. I don't want to spend much time here. Let me add all the icons. And below this, I want a text box. So let's go text box. And here in title, I'm going to write overview. All right. And in horizontal alignment, keep it to center. Now I'm going to bring it here. All right. So now let me quickly add all other icons and text box. After adding all the icons, this is how it looks like. So I'm going to change the background color, select the box and go to style. Here we have this option called fill. Now let me change the color. And here we have this section called border, turn it off. All right. See how instantly it has elevated the look. So now I'm going to simply select the date and see how the values are looking like. So let's go. First, I'm going to check for the year 2024. So let's select here. For 2024, select Jan, and from Jan 2nd, and then here go 2024 December and select 31st. All right. So as you can see, for year 2024, we have total admissions 362 and occupancy rate we are getting blank. So we need to check because it shouldn't be blank. And average length of stay we're getting as 6 days. Okay, this is fine. Readmission rate is 0. All right, this is possible. And total revenue 10 million. So let's see why we are getting blank for occupancy rate. Let me click on the measure here. Let's try to understand the formula. What we are trying to do. Okay, I'm saving active patients in a variable and I'm dividing active patients by total bed capacity. All right. So how are we calculating active patients? Based on discharge date. So I'm checking if the discharge date is empty, and if the discharge date is there, it should be greater than today. All right. Since I'm using today function here, it is looking at the active patients for the present date. So when I'm selecting 2024 and 25, those patients might have already been discharged. That's the reason we are getting incorrect value. So let me change that. So here I'm going to create one more variable, reference date. And here I'm going to use max function and call admission of admission date. So what it does, so whatever the time period I select on the slicer, so it is going to select the last day of that particular time period. So instead of today, I'm going to make use of that. Change today to reference date. Why I'm not able to get it? Let's check here what's happening. Reference date, okay. So here, okay, I think we need to check here. All right. So now let's check. What is the error we're getting? The syntax for calculate is incorrect. All right. All right. So now this is done. Because after creating the variable, I have forgotten to mention return, right? I need to use return function, return. So that was the reason it was not accepting before. So let me close it and let's go here. Now occupancy rate, let's go to table view first and go here. Occupancy rate percentage. Now from general, I'm going to change it to percentage. Let's go to report view. All right. Now you can see that for 2024, I have 1.79%. So similarly, let's change the year and see how much we are getting. Here, let's go down. Okay. No. Why I'm selecting 2024? Okay. January 31st. And now here I'm going to change it to December 31st. Okay. So here I have 2.14% and all right, this is done. So now I need to add few more visuals to the dashboard. So I'm going to duplicate a page. To do that, go to page 1. Here you will find two options, duplicate and rename. Click on duplicate. So as you can see, we have duplicated the page. And here I'm going to rename it as page 2. So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep the designing part as it is and remove the visual part. So I'm going to remove all the KPI cards. Slicer and text box, I'm going to keep it as it is. Now let's add some AI magic to the dashboard. Under visualization pane, select decomposition tree. Let me resize this a little bit. Here you can see we have two options. One is analyze and another one is explain by. So first I want to investigate total revenue. So I'm going to select total revenue and drag and drop this measure. And further I want to break down the numbers by department and then by insurance provider. So I'm going to drag department and after that I'm going to drag insurance provider. Where is insurance provider? Okay, here it is. All right. So now let's change the formatting, because as you can see values are in little darker colors and I'm not able to view the report properly. So let's go here, go to tree. Here let me change it to dense, and let's go to connectors, change the color, go to bars, and then again quickly change the color. Let's come down, go to category labels, change the font size and then color, and go to values, and here also let's keep it 14 and then change the color to white. Headers, keep it 14, color, let me keep this one. Subtitles, keep 12 and color white. All right, go to background. This I'm going to change. All right, done. So as you can see on the screen, we have this plus icon. If I click on this, it is giving me all these options. So here I can select how do I want to break down the numbers. So I want to break down total revenue by department first. So I'm going to select that. So again, further I have one more plus icon. If I click on this, again it is giving me option. So further I want to break down the revenue by insurance provider. So let me select that. So let's select health first insurance provider here and explain. So here in the first bar I have total revenue generated, and here I have it is displaying total revenue generated by ICU department, and here it is showing how much total revenue is contributed from self-pay insurance company. So similarly you can change. So finally, if you notice these little lock icons, these are for to lock the path. By locking them, I am telling Power BI to freeze the view. If somebody is looking at my report, they should view department first and then insurance provider second. By leaving them unlocked, if I publish the report, if anybody is looking at my report, they can change the path. So usually I don't want that. So that's the reason I'm going to lock them. Let's lock. All right. Now let me adjust this a little bit. Okay, great. Now I want to see admissions over a period of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a line chart. Let's go here and select that. Let me resize this a little bit. And now here in x-axis, I'm going to take the admission date. Let's go here and I'm going to select only the month. And now in y-axis, I'm going to take total admissions measure. Select this and drag and drop it here. So now let's change the formatting style. Let's go here, go to x-axis, and here font size I'm going to keep 9. Color I'm going to change it to white. Let's scroll down a little bit and turn the title off. And let's go to y-axis. Here also turn the title off, expand value section, change the font color. And now scroll down, expand gridline section. Here let's change the color. All right, this is done. Let me place it properly. All right. So now let's add another interesting AI feature called Smart Narrative. Let's say you're presenting your dashboard to a client and they don't want to look at the charts to understand what's happening. They want to have a written summary. That's when Smart Narrative feature comes into the picture. Let me show you practically. To add the visual, under visualization pane, you will find this option called narrative. Select that. All right. Here you have two options. So I'm going to select custom. All right. Let me change the font color here. Let's go here. First, let me change the background color. Let me keep it white for now so that it become easily readable. Let's change the font size also. I'm going to keep it 16. All right. So as you can see here, instantly it has read the active visuals and translated the data into human language. So if you see, I have the data for 2000. So as you can see here, I have the data for year 2025. So here it is saying that at 32 January had the highest total admission. So even if you look at the line chart here, in January we have 32. So it is translating the same thing. And it was higher than November, which had the lowest total admissions at 6. If you see here, November had total admissions 6. So January had the highest admissions and November had the lowest admissions. And January accounted for 10.26 of total admissions. So this is explained properly. And one thing you need to understand here, this is not a static text box. So for example, if I change the text, if I change the date here, you can notice that the values are also getting updated. Let me come down. Let's select. You can see, okay, let's see. It has updated the value. So now, here is the best part. So here, you're not stuck with AI words. If you want, you can add the manual values also. Let's say I want to know what is the total revenue. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the values manually. Let me show you how to do that. So here I'm going to type total revenue. And now I'm going to link this to the measure that I have already created. So to do that, go to value, and here I'm going to call the measure total revenue and click on OK. All right. And now again, I want to know what is the bed capacity. Bed, okay, bed occupancy percentage. Go to value, and here we have already calculated occupancy percentage. Let's call this value and click on OK. So now what I'm going to do, let me select the entire thing and let me change the font size. I'm going to keep it 16. All right. And now let's go to effects. Here I'm going to change the background color. So let's go here. All right. And now select the entire text and change the text color to white. All right. So now this is done. Although it is a powerful tool, it has some limitations. It will not be able to read the AI driven visuals. Let's say if I select the decomposition visual, and if I ask the smart narrative to read the values for me, it will not be able to do that. And there you go. We have successfully built a professional hospital management dashboard. If you followed along, I would love to see your version. You can upload a reel or maybe a screenshot on Instagram and you can tag me. My ID you will find in the description. And I also would love to hear your feedback. So please leave a comment below if you find this video useful and keep practicing. I'll see you in the next one.